I used to think the dumbest thing that could happen at a 7th wedding anniversary was a slideshow. You know the kind. 100 photos nobody asked for, soft music in the background, and someone saying, "Look how far you've come," like the couple just climbed Everest instead of buying a house and arguing about laundry. That was my expectation. Cake, wine, maybe a slightly embarrassing toast. What I did not expect was my wife presenting a revised rulebook for our marriage in front of 10 people and a bowl of spinach dip. For context, Celeste and I had been married 7 years, long enough to know each other's habits, moods, and the exact tone of voice that means, this conversation is about to get expensive. From the outside, we looked solid. Good house, stable jobs, no screaming fights, no dramatic social media cryptic posts, just the usual married life, routines, mild sarcasm, shared grocery lists. I handled the finances because I'm good with numbers, and because Celeste once looked at our budget spreadsheet like it was written in ancient hieroglyphs. Celeste worked remotely in brand management, which basically meant a lot of video calls where people say alignment and value strategy while wearing gym clothes. Speaking of gym clothes, Celeste had gotten very serious about fitness over the last couple of years. Personal trainer, strict diet, early morning workouts. At the time I thought, good for her. In hindsight, that should have been one of the first things I looked at more closely, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The anniversary party was her idea. "Let's keep it small," she said, which translated to clean the house, buy good wine, arrange food like we're opening a restaurant. By evening, everything looked great. Lights on the patio, music playing softly, the kitchen island covered with snacks that looked way too fancy for our friend group. Guests started arriving around 6. First, her sister Naomi, carrying a dessert she claimed was homemade. I did not believe her. Then Celeste's best friend Talia. Talia had the alert eyes of a woman who always knew everyone's business and considered privacy more of a suggestion. Then 2 of my friends from work, Ben and Marcus, who brought whiskey and the calm energy of men just happy to be somewhere without their kids. Within half an hour, the house had that comfortable buzz I actually enjoy. People moving between rooms, glasses clinking, someone laughing too loudly at something that wasn't that funny. Ben came over while I was opening another bottle. "You survived 7 years," he said. "That's impressive." "Thank you. I'm hoping for a certificate at 10. Or a plaque. A tax credit," I said. "I'd settle for that." Marcus nodded toward Celeste, who was talking near the patio doors with Talia and Naomi. "She looks happy. She likes hosting." "No, man," he said. "She looks really happy." I glanced over. He was right, sort of. She was glowing, relaxed, sharp, almost excited. Not normal anniversary excited either. Not soft, sentimental excited. More like somebody who had prepared a surprise and was enjoying the fact that only she knew what was coming. I should have paid more attention to that. Instead, I took a sip of whiskey and made the first mistake of the evening, which was feeling calm. Dinner went well. Too well, in hindsight. Everybody ate, told stories, traded the usual anniversary lines. "How did you 2 meet? Who said, 'I love you' first? Who's messier?" Marcus raised a glass. "So, what's the secret to 7 years?" "Mutually lowered expectations and excellent Wi-Fi," I said. That got a laugh. Celeste put a hand on my arm and smiled the kind of smile wives give in public when they are pretending you're adorable instead of legally exhausting. Then came dessert. That was when Celeste stood up and tapped her glass with a spoon. And I swear to God, every bad memory I now have starts with that tiny little ding. People quieted down. She looked around the room, smiling in that polished way of hers, chin slightly raised, one hand around the stem of her wine glass. "Thank you all for coming tonight," she said. 7 years is a big milestone, and it means a lot to celebrate it with people we love. Then she looked at me. "And I actually prepared a little surprise for my husband." Everyone perked up immediately. Naomi clasped her hands. Oh, I love surprises. Ben muttered next to me, "Please let it be something embarrassing." "I'm hoping for a power tool," I said. Celeste reached to the sideboard and picked up a cream-colored envelope. She held it up with a smile. "I thought after 7 years," she said, "maybe it was time for an update." "An update to what?" I asked. "You'll see." She opened the envelope and pulled out a sheet of paper. Then she said brightly, "I call this New Marriage Rules, Updated Version." The room burst into laughter. Real laughter. The kind people give when they think a joke is about to happen. I laughed too. "Your Honor," I said, raising a hand, "I request legal counsel." "Denied," Celeste said. More laughter. She cleared her throat dramatically. "Rule number 1, she read, husband handles finances, bills, and long-term planning." Marcus pointed at me. "That's already true." "It's because I'm the hot one," I said. "We agreed beauty shouldn't also carry responsibility." Celeste rolled her eyes but smiled. "Rule number 2, she continued, wife maintains personal freedom and independence." Talia laughed. "As she should." I nodded. "I live under a very progressive monarchy." People laughed again. Still playful. Still normal. Then Celeste looked down at the paper one more time. Her tone shifted slightly. "Rule number 3, she read, if we ever have children, they will carry my last name." The room went, not silent, but different. A couple people laughed uncertainly. I blinked. "Wait," I said. "What?" Celeste looked at me calmly. "If we have kids," she repeated, "they'll have my last name." Naomi chuckled awkwardly. "That's modern." Talia said, "Honestly kind of iconic." I leaned back in my chair and smiled. "Wow," I said. "Did my last name fail some kind of quality test?" That got a bigger laugh from the room. Celeste didn't laugh immediately. She just said, "I want my legacy to continue." Something about the way she said it felt cold. "But you don't start a philosophical debate in the middle of your own anniversary party." "Your legacy," I said. "Wow. Should I be taking notes? Are you founding Rome?" More laughter, a little forced, a little relieved. She didn't laugh right away. Then she did, small and controlled. "Don't be dramatic." "Too late," I said. "I married you." People laughed again, grateful for the joke. The conversation moved on. More drinks, more stories, more music. But something about that moment stuck with me. After the guests finally left and the house got quiet again, I found Celeste in the kitchen stacking plates. I leaned against the counter. "So," I said, "about Rule 3. She didn't look up. "What about it?" "The last name thing." She shrugged. "I believe in it." "In what?" "Legacy." I watched her for a moment. "You realize that sounded less like a joke and more like a policy decision?" She finally looked at me. "Genetics matter." I laughed once. "Our genetics?" She held my gaze. "Well," she said calmly, "some genetics matter more than others." I felt insulted before I felt suspicious. Because there's something deeply offensive about standing in your own kitchen, on your own anniversary, while your wife casually implies that human reproduction should perhaps involve a more selective hiring process. I straightened. "I'm going to give you one more chance to phrase that, like someone who actually likes her husband." She rolled her eyes, which, if you're married, you know is the visual equivalent of lighting a match and dropping it into dry grass. "Oh my God, Daniel, don't be so dramatic. And don't call me dramatic after publicly workshop testing my replacement as a surname donor." "I did not say that." "You didn't have to." She turned away, picked up another plate, then put it down harder than necessary. "You are exhausting when you get like this." She stared at me. I stared back. She looked away first. "I'm going to bed," she said, and left the kitchen. I stood there alone among dirty plates, half-drunk wine glasses, and the remains of our 7th anniversary, listening to her footsteps go upstairs. Then I looked at the envelope still sitting on the sideboard. Cream-colored, neat, harmless-looking, and standing there in the dim kitchen light, anniversary candles burning low, I had the first ugly thought I didn't want to say out loud. Maybe that wasn't just a weird joke. Maybe that was a preview. For a couple of days after the party, I tried to convince myself I was overthinking it. Which, to be fair, is something every husband eventually learns to do if he wants to stay married. Sometimes your brain sees patterns where there aren't any. Sometimes your wife says something weird, and you file it under "human beings are strange," and move on with your life. So I tried that. Monday morning came. Work emails, coffee, the normal rhythm. Celeste woke up early like she always did, already dressed for the gym by the time I came downstairs. Black leggings, white athletic jacket, hair tied back. She looked energized in that annoying way morning people do. "Morning," she said. "Morning." She poured herself water from the fridge. "Leg day today," she said casually. I nodded. "Should I be afraid?" "You should always be afraid. That's been my marriage strategy so far." She smirked and grabbed her gym bag. "Don't forget," she said, "you promised to call the insurance company today." "I did that yesterday." "Oh, see? Strong genetics, excellent memory." She gave me a look. "Still stuck on that?" "Not stuck," I said. "Just curious how my DNA suddenly became second tier." She didn't answer that, just grabbed her keys. "I'll be back around 11. Then she left. The house went quiet. At that point, I didn't suspect anything specific. But something in my brain had started digging. And once that process starts, it doesn't really stop. Because suddenly little memories begin lining up like witnesses. Not proof, just details. The first one was how often Celeste talked about genetics, not in a creepy lab coat way, more like casual observations. We'd be watching a sports game and she'd say something like, "Look at that guy's build, perfect genetics." Or we'd pass a group of runners in the park and she'd say, "You can always tell who has the right body structure." At the time I thought it was just gym culture. People who get really into fitness start talking like that. Macros, body composition, muscle ratios, the language of protein powder. But once that idea planted itself in my head, those comments felt different. Then there was the gym itself. Celeste had always worked out, but 2 years ago she suddenly became extremely serious about it. 5 days a week, sometimes 6. Strict schedule, early mornings, late evening sessions. Private training, she called it. Her trainer's name was Eric. I'd met him once, tall guy, probably mid-30s, the kind of build that makes other men immediately aware of their own posture. Broad shoulders, perfect teeth, the relaxed confidence of someone who has spent most of his life being physically impressive. The meeting had lasted maybe 30 seconds. We ran into him at the gym entrance one evening. Celeste had waved. "Daniel, this is Eric, my trainer." Eric shook my hand. "Nice to meet you, man." Strong grip, friendly smile. He had the kind of face that made you think he probably sold supplements on Instagram and occasionally lifted trucks for charity events. At the time, I didn't think anything about it. People have trainers. Trainers look like that. Normal. But once that thought about genetics got stuck in my head, my brain replayed the meeting differently. Mostly because of the way Celeste had looked at him. Not flirtatious, not obvious, just attentive. Like someone evaluating something. At the time, I filed that under normal human interaction. Now it sat there in my memory like a photograph that suddenly developed a darker shadow in the background. Still, I wasn't accusing anyone of anything. Not yet. The next strange moment happened about a week after the anniversary. We were at Talia's birthday dinner. Small restaurant downtown. Loud music, candles on the table. That dim lighting restaurants use to hide both wrinkles and bad decisions. I had stepped away from the table to grab another drink from the bar. When I came back, I stopped just outside the corner of the dining area because I heard Celeste's voice. She was talking quietly with Talia. "I'm still thinking about it," Celeste was saying. Talia leaned forward. "You can't think forever. I know. Well, have you decided? Not yet. There was a pause. Then Talia said something that made my brain freeze for a second. You're running out of time if you want the right father. The right father. That phrase again. I didn't move, didn't breathe. I just stood there behind the wall like a very confused piece of furniture. Celeste sighed. I know that. Talia lowered her voice. And? Celeste shook her head. I'm still figuring things out. That was when someone at the bar called my name. Daniel? I turned automatically. One of the guys from my office had spotted me. I forced a smile, raised a hand, said hello. When I turned back toward the table, the conversation between Celeste and Talia had already shifted to something else. When I sat down, Celeste looked at me. You disappeared. Barline, I said. She nodded. Dinner continued. Wine, jokes, birthday candles, the usual. But inside my head, something had started moving. Because the right father is not a normal phrase in a normal conversation between two friends. Especially when the person already has a husband sitting 10 feet away. I tried to stay calm. Maybe they were talking about someone else. Maybe a friend. Maybe Talia. Maybe some random hypothetical conversation about dating. That's what a rational brain does. It builds alternative explanations. But once suspicion wakes up, it doesn't go back to sleep easily. Over the next couple of weeks, I started noticing small things. Celeste suddenly keeping her phone face down on the table, closing message windows when I walked past her laptop, deleting notifications quickly, not dramatic secrecy, just subtle adjustments. Enough to make you wonder if they had always been there and you simply hadn't cared before. One night we were watching TV when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smiled slightly, then locked the screen. Who's that? I asked casually. Gym group chat? What did gym group chats talk about? Workouts. Riveting. She nudged me with her foot. Don't be jealous. I'm not jealous, I said. I'm fascinated. Another small moment. Another small note in the growing file inside my head. The real turning point came a few days later. Celeste had left her tablet on the kitchen counter before heading to the gym. It lit up while I was making coffee. A message notification popped onto the screen. From Talia. Normally, I wouldn't even look. But that phrase from the restaurant, the right father, was still echoing in my brain. So I glanced. Just a glance. And the preview line said, Imagine having a child with those genetics. My stomach did something unpleasant. I picked up the tablet. The message thread opened automatically. Talia had sent a link. Underneath it she wrote, Seriously though. Celeste had replied, I know. Below that was the link preview. It led to an Instagram profile. Eric's Instagram profile. Photos of workouts, photos of competitions, photos of him standing shirtless on a beach somewhere looking like a walking anatomy diagram. Under the link, Celeste had written one more message. One sentence. My husband would be a great provider, but not necessarily the best father genetically. I just stood there in the kitchen staring at that line. There's a strange quiet that happens when something inside your life shifts from theory to evidence. Not rage, not yelling, just a cold, slow understanding spreading through your chest. I set the tablet back down exactly where it had been, finished my coffee. Then I leaned on the counter and laughed quietly to myself. Because suddenly that anniversary speech made perfect sense. Rule number 3. My last name wasn't the problem. I was, at least from a genetic standpoint. For the next few days, I didn't confront her. Not because I was scared, not because I was one of those guys who sits quietly while his life burns down around him. No, I didn't confront her because I suddenly understood something important. If Celeste was actually planning what I thought she was planning, then the last thing I should do was warn her. People get sloppy when they think you trust them. They get careful when they think you're watching. I kept behaving like the same husband she'd always had. Calm, normal, slightly sarcastic, The guy who paid the bills and made jokes during dinner. But behind the scenes, I started paying attention. Not dramatic spy movie attention. I wasn't hiding in bushes with binoculars. Just observation. The first thing I noticed was how predictable Celeste's gym schedule actually was. Monday, Wednesday, Friday mornings. Tuesday and Thursday evenings. Weekends occasionally, depending on what she called extra training. Every session with Eric. Personal training, private sessions. At least that was the official description. One evening we were sitting on the couch when she casually mentioned it again. "Tomorrow I have a late session," she said. I looked up from my laptop. "Late how?" "7. With Eric?" "Yes." I nodded slowly. "You two spend a lot of time together." She shrugged. "That's how training works." I thought training was lifting weights, not building a weekly schedule together. She looked at me sideways. "You jealous?" "No," I said. "I'm just trying to understand why my wife sees another man more often than her husband." She rolled her eyes. "You're being ridiculous." "Probably," I said. And then I dropped the conversation. Because the point wasn't to argue. The point was to let her keep talking. And people talk a lot when they think nothing is wrong. Over the next week, I started quietly collecting things. Screenshots, dates, times, nothing illegal, nothing dramatic, just information. Her tablet conversations with Talia continued occasionally when she forgot to lock it properly. Most of them were harmless. Memes, complaints about work, random gossip. But every now and then, something slipped through. One afternoon, I saw a message from Talia that said, "Have you decided yet?" Celeste replied, "Still thinking." Talia sent another message. "Well, you can't wait forever." Celeste answered with a laughing emoji. Then another message appeared. "Imagine that kid with Eric's height." I stared at the screen, closed the tablet, and sat there quietly for about 30 seconds. Not angry, not shocked, just impressed. Because planning a genetic upgrade while married requires a certain level of confidence. Or stupidity. Sometimes both. That night at dinner, I decided to test something. We were sitting at the table eating pasta. Celeste was scrolling through something on her phone. I leaned back in my chair. "You ever think about kids?" I asked. She looked up immediately. "Where did that come from?" 7 years of marriage, I said. "Statistically, someone should bring it up." She put her phone down. "I've thought about it." "Yeah?" "Yes." "And?" She shrugged. "Maybe someday." Someday is vague. So is the future. I twirled my fork slowly. "If we did have kids," I said, "would you still insist on the last name thing?" Her expression didn't change. "Yes." "Still your legacy?" "Yes." I watched her carefully. "Interesting," I said. She frowned slightly. "What?" "Just wondering how far the legacy concept goes." "What does that mean?" "It means," I said, "do we just pick the best traits from a catalog, or do we work with what we've got?" She stared at me for a second, then laughed. "You're being weird again." "Am I?" "Yes." She grabbed her phone again and the conversation ended. But the look in her eyes told me something. Not guilt, not fear, more like calculation. Which confirmed something else for me. Celeste didn't think she was doing anything wrong. She thought she was being clever, strategic, efficient. And the more I watched, the clearer the pattern became. Late gym sessions, private training, more phone privacy, more time messaging Talia. One night I woke up around 2 in the morning and noticed the light from the bathroom. Celeste was in there with the door mostly closed, talking quietly. I couldn't hear the words clearly, but I heard something that made my stomach tighten. Her tone, soft, almost playful. Not the voice she used with coworkers, not the voice she used with friends. Definitely not the voice she used with me during budget discussions. When she came back to bed, she thought I was asleep. She slid under the blanket carefully. Her phone screen lit up once more before she locked it. The contact name was hidden. But the message preview said, "Tomorrow works." I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, still calm, still thinking. Because the truth is, by that point, the betrayal wasn't even the part that bothered me most. The part that bothered me was the arrogance, the idea that I would never notice, that I'd happily raise some genetically superior child while paying the mortgage. That rule number 3 wasn't just a joke. It was step 1 of the plan. And the funny thing about arrogance is that it makes people careless. About 3 nights later, that carelessness gave me the final piece of the puzzle. Celeste was in the living room talking on the phone. She thought I was upstairs in the office. I wasn't. I had just come down the hallway quietly because I forgot my charger. Her voice drifted from the couch. "I know," she was saying. Pause. "No, he hasn't noticed anything." Another pause. Then she laughed softly. "If everything works out, he'll think the baby is his." I stopped walking. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. Because there are sentences that don't leave room for interpretation. That was one of them. She kept talking. "I just need the timing to be right." Pause. "Yes, obviously." Another pause. "Relax. Daniel trusts me." I leaned against the wall in the dark hallway. Not angry, not shaking, just done. Because in that moment, everything connected. The rule, the trainer, the conversations, the messages, the arrogance. I went back upstairs quietly, sat at my desk, and opened the folder on my computer where I had been saving screenshots for the past 2 weeks. There were already more than enough, but now the story had a very clear ending. And the best part, Celeste had absolutely no idea it was coming. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I was upset, because I was thinking. There's a strange calm that comes after you finally understand what's happening. All the confusion disappears, and suddenly the situation becomes very simple. Celeste thought she was running a long, clever strategy. Have a child with better genetics. Let the husband believe it's his. Continue life normally. Efficient. Elegant. One small problem. I'm not stupid. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen island, and reviewed the screenshots on my phone again. The messages with Talia, the comments about Eric, the sentence about my genetics. Then there was the one from last night, the sentence I heard while standing in the hallway. "If everything works out, he'll think the baby is his." I wrote that line down immediately after, word for word, saved it in 3 different places. Because when someone hands you evidence that good, you don't lose it. Around 7:30, Celeste came downstairs dressed for the gym. Black leggings again. White top. Hair tied back. She looked refreshed. People always look refreshed when they think their secrets are safe. "Morning," she said. "Morning." She grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge. "Did you sleep okay?" "Like a baby." She leaned against the counter. "Big day at work?" "Nothing exciting." "Lucky you," she said. Then she slung her gym bag over her shoulder. "Training session this morning." "With Eric?" I asked casually. She didn't hesitate. "Yes." I nodded slowly. "Well," I said, "tell him his genetics are doing great work." She frowned. "What?" "Nothing," I said. "Inside joke." She stared at me for a moment, trying to decide if she'd missed something. Then she shrugged. "You're weird lately." "I've been married 7 years," I said. "Weird is the natural evolution." She left for the gym a minute later. The house went quiet again. I finished my coffee and started organizing everything. Screenshots, dates, messages, phone conversation notes. It wasn't hard to build the timeline. Celeste had started personal training with Eric about 8 months earlier. About 6 months ago, the messages with Talia started mentioning him more often. 3 months ago was the first time she wrote the phrase genetics. 2 months ago was when she started talking about timing. And then there was the anniversary. Rule number 3, the public rehearsal. Looking at it laid out like that was almost impressive. She hadn't just been cheating. She had been planning. That part fascinated me. Because cheating is messy. Planning a replacement father while married requires a whole different level of confidence. Or arrogance. Probably both. Around 10:30, Celeste came back from the gym. Sweaty, energized, glowing. She tossed her bag on the chair and headed for the fridge. "Sports is magical. You should try it sometime." "I already exercise," I said. "Oh, really?" "Yes. I carry this marriage emotionally." She laughed and grabbed a towel. For a moment, we just stood there in the kitchen like any normal married couple. Which was almost funny. Because she had no idea the game was already over. The only thing left was the ending. I decided not to rush it. Instead, I waited a couple days, acted normal, made dinner, watched TV, even joked about the anniversary again once. "You know," I told her one night, "I've been thinking about your rule book." "Oh God," she said. "You're still on that?" "I like rules," I said. "Structure, clarity." She smirked. "So you're finally accepting them?" "Maybe." That caught her attention. "Oh?" "Yeah," I said. "Rule 3 especially." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Really?" "Sure," I said. "If we're doing the legacy thing, we should talk about it seriously." She studied me carefully. "You're surprisingly calm about this." "I've had time to think." And maybe you're right." She smiled slightly. That smile told me something important. She thought she was winning. That belief made the next part even easier. 2 nights later, I suggested we open a bottle of wine after dinner. She didn't suspect anything. We sat at the kitchen table, just the two of us. Quiet house, soft light from the pendant lamps. "Okay," she said, pouring wine. "What's this about?" I leaned back in my chair. "I've been thinking about Rule 3. She rolled her eyes. "Again?" "Yeah. What about it?" "I think we should clarify it." She raised an eyebrow. "Clarify how?" "Well," I said calmly, "if the child is supposed to carry your last name, we should probably also clarify the father situation." The smile disappeared. "What?" I reached into the folder next to me, pulled out a stack of printed pages, and placed them gently on the table between us. Messages, screenshots, dates, the Instagram link, and one very specific line highlighted in yellow. "My husband would be a great provider, but not necessarily the best father genetically." The room went silent. Celeste looked down at the pages, then back at me, then back at the pages. Her brain was moving fast. I could see it. First denial, then strategy, then damage control. "You went through my tablet?" she said finally. "Yes," I said. "That's a huge violation of privacy." "So is planning a child with another man while married." She opened her mouth, closed it again, then forced a laugh. "You're completely misunderstanding this." "Am I?" "Yes." "Great," I said. "Explain it." She pointed at the messages. "This is just hypothetical conversation." "About my genetic inferiority?" "You're twisting it." I highlighted it. Her jaw tightened. "That doesn't mean anything happened." "Not yet," I said. Silence stretched across the table. Then I slid one more page toward her, the note I had written after overhearing the phone call, and the sentence she said, "If everything works out, he'll think the baby is his." Her face changed, just slightly, but enough. That tiny moment was the first honest thing she had shown all evening. I leaned back in my chair and took a sip of wine. "You know what's funny?" I said. She didn't answer. "The rule book. Because at the time I thought Rule 3 was weird." I tapped the paper gently. "But now I realize something." She looked up slowly. "You didn't want the kid to have my last name," I said calmly. I held her gaze. "Because you never planned for the kid to be mine." For a moment, Celeste didn't speak, didn't move, didn't even blink. And in that quiet kitchen, with the evidence spread across the table between us, The entire plan she had been building for months finally collapsed into silence. Celeste stared at the pages for a long moment. Then she pushed them away slightly. "You're building this whole story in your head." "Am I?" "Yes." She crossed her arms. "You don't have proof of anything. Messages about replacing your husband genetically seem like a decent starting point." "This is insane, Daniel." I looked at her for a few seconds. Then I nodded slowly. "You're right about one thing." Her expression shifted slightly. "What?" "This marriage is insane." She frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm not interested in participating in whatever experiment you were planning." Her eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about? You're destroying our marriage over speculation." "No," I said calmly. "I'm ending it because my wife was shopping for a biological upgrade." Her face hardened. "You're not serious." "I am." I grabbed my phone and keys from the counter. The divorce papers were filed this morning. And with these words, I grabbed my jacket and left that house forever. A few weeks later, the divorce process was already moving. Celeste tried a few different strategies at first. Denial, anger, then the classic, "You misunderstood everything." I didn't argue. There wasn't much left to discuss. Some of the people from the anniversary party eventually heard what actually happened. Funny enough, the story of the marriage rules spread faster than anything else. Ben called me one night and said, laughing, "Man, I thought that rule thing was a joke." "Yeah," I told him. "So did I." As for Celeste, the last thing she said during one of our final conversations was, "You're ruining something good because of paranoia." Maybe. But I'd rather be paranoid than raise someone else's genetic upgrade while paying the mortgage. Looking back, I still think about that anniversary sometimes, because in the end, the whole truth was sitting right there on that piece of paper. Rule number 3. Turns out it wasn't a joke, it was a warning. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.